Well, hello again, ladies and gentlemen. It's your friend No Way. And like a few people, I really wanted to wait until the dust settled to look into and, well, I guess give my thoughts on just what's going on. When it comes to what we're seeing today in America, it should be very troubling for everybody. But I'd say some, they want it. They live for it. And as we saw in the past 4 or 5 days, people are glorifying it. When we look at why, how come, for what reason, what happened to Charlie Kirk, I haven't seen any, well, I can't say any, Living Waters with Ray Comfort, and even Todd Friel of Fortress TV and radio put good biblical discussions into it. We need to understand what has caused it. Now, the true cause we'll never know. We will never ever know the true and honest cause and reasoning behind what happened. Why? Because it is our own government that has done it. If we look real quick at the spread of Marxism in the world, you have to get the true, honest history behind it. When it spread through Europe in the 1800s, it wasn't working. And the reason it wasn't working is because the people were not willing to engage in the violence that was needed. Now, in the 1930s Germany, they found people that were willing. Now, where did most of those people come from? They came from what was called the Hitler Youth. These were young children being brought up in an evil, hateful, vengeful, violent environment. Then they were turned loose onto the people. And we all know that once everything came to pass and the National Workers' Party of Germany was created, then we saw they walked out of Parliament when they didn't get their way. They done all these things, and they basically finally got enough radicals in the street, in society, violent radicals, that they seized power of Germany. And we all know the outcome of World War II. Now, here in America, that way of life and everything, it didn't die. It just went on to another country and another country and another country and another country. And we're seeing many of those countries today with a form of totalitarian rule, to where if you speak out against what these people believe in, then you're attacked. Now, here in America, you may not think that it's here, but it is. It is right here today in America. We have a school system that is pushing this radicalism onto our children. K through 12, teachers, staff, administrators, the teachers' unions, the Democrat Party, are indoctrinating these children right from a very young age. Look at what is happening to our youth in these school systems. Look at how violent they are when they become teenagers. Now, I know a lot of you right now, the first thought in your head is homeschooling. More people need to save their children by homeschooling. Yes, that I can agree with. But at the same time, you have to protect them from the next stage. Hundreds of parents have homeschooled their children. And what happened once they homeschooled their children, what did they do? They put themselves tens of thousands of dollars in debt and their child tens of thousands of dollars in debt, and they think they're sending them on to some college or university to get a higher education, get a better education, and move through. What they don't realize is this is the final stage of the radicalism within these students. Because when they were, the ones that came from public schools were already well indoctrinated. The ones that come from homeschooling, well, it only takes one, and I have seen a couple years after homeschooling and they're in a university, these youth are completely changed. Because the cultural Marxism used, you must first control the government. Second, destroy the family unit. We have seen that in America. Third, you must take over and control the educational system. And we've seen that. The fourth part of this is you need to create the oppressor and the victim. The oppressor is a straight, white, Christian male. Period. Done. End of story. The victim? Oh, it's everybody else. Even the women are being told that they are oppressed by the straight, white, Christian male. Oh, they just want you barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen. And they want to control you, which is the farthest thing from the truth. But the victim is told that every time they fail, no matter what, it's not because they didn't learn a trade, they didn't study math, science, the true math, science, history, language, all of it. They didn't study the truth. So when they fail, oh, well, it's the oppressor's fault. It's the straight, white, Christian male. They're the oppressor. And that's where we're at today. And there's no way to combat that because it has been bred into them from 5-6 years old in the very schools you are forced to pay for. So we have what we have today in our society. They have no identity. They have no morals, no values, no job skills. Nothing. What they do have is a violent, radical trait that is being used, just like all the other tyrannical governments in the world throughout history, to destroy their own country. Because these children it's being forced into their head that America is evil. You can't love your own country. You can't be proud of your own country. Patriotism is fascism. If you love your country, then you're the problem. See, so when this keeps being pushed, and it's being pushed by movies, it's being pushed by schools, it's being pushed by media, it's being pushed by radicals in our government on both sides. But the last pillar in this structure that must be destroyed is the church. Christianity is the glue that holds all of this together. Now, shall we look at Christianity today in America? I'm not saying all, but I'm saying a lot. A lot of the churches, what did they say about what happened with Charlie Kirk? Oh, it was a tragedy, and these are terrible times we're in. And today we will talk about blah, blah, blah. So the parishioners are not understanding the true evil that even the Bible talked about. They're not getting a true biblical understanding of what is going on in our times today. Because the majority of the churches, what do they care about? Fill the pews, take their money. That's it. Look at all the churches out there today that are pushing that lifestyle. They have the flags, they have the certain people in leadership and in preaching, and there's nothing biblical about it anymore. It's all just feel good. It's all reward, reward, reward. Listen to us. We're teaching you all about all the rewards, but they're not teaching about punishment. They're not teaching about sin. They're not teaching about the evil, demonic people that are in our society. That, as we see with Charlie Kirk, will unalive you for nothing more than speaking your opinion and saying something that they don't like. Because they have been convinced by these professors and by their school teachers and by the media and by the politicians that if you don't like what somebody's saying, ooh, that's hate speech. If they don't agree with you, that's hate speech. See, and this fuels that radicalism. So now let me take it to another perspective. God's perspective. We have to take a good look at God's perspective on what has happened. When we look all through the biblical side of society and our biblical history that is clearly told right in the Bible, if people care to believe it or not. We do know that in the schools, God is pushed onto our youth, as he does not exist. The Bible is a lie, God does not exist, the whole thing is a cult. But yet they'll speak all day long, mocking, cutting down, belittling God, turning these children away from God. If any child in the school follows, believes, or speaks of God, it's the school system themselves that use the other students to do what? Bully, belittle, mock, and attack the very child that will not adhere to their ideology, their agenda, their indoctrination. And what do I mean by that? My neighbor, right beside me, real nice guy. When his daughter was a sophomore in high school, she refused in the classroom to acknowledge there were 76 genders. And you know what the school system did? They suspended her for 2 weeks. saying she was engaging in hateful behavior because she refused to acknowledge 76 genders. And this is a public school system. But she stood her ground for God and her godly belief. Good for her. Now, when we look all the way back through, people may ponder right now in their heads and in their hearts, how could God allow this to happen? God allows things to happen for His glory. When we look all the way back to Abraham, Abraham was disobedient. He did not believe his wife that was in her 90s could bear a child, and he was disobedient. And he bore a child with another woman instead. But that was not God's plan, now was it? And Abraham, upon his wife Sarah having a child, he learned God's strength and authority over all. So from that point on, he done whatever God asked of him to do. So even before this, when we had Noah was a drunk. You won't hear the churches talk about that today, but Noah was a drunk. Noah had a problem with what they called strong drink, fermented wine. But God used him anyway. He saw God's glory, God's mercy, God's strength, God's authority over everything. And he did exactly what God asked of him to do. And he did it. And we are all here today because he did. So after Abraham, we come to Moses. Moses had a temper. Moses had a very vicious temper. Easy to anger. He was of the old ways. When the people would not trust in God, that God would send them water when he needed it, what did Moses do? He took his staff and he struck that rock to bring forth water. He let his temper get the best of him. But God used him anyway. God rose him up. And God showed his authority. Now, when it comes to King David, King David was an adulterer. But God used him. God used David to save a nation. But first, God had to make David save David. King David was so disobedient and such an adulterer, thinking of himself. His nation suffered until King David himself, down on his knees, begging for mercy from God, put that punishment upon me and not my nation, for I am at fault, not them. And God healed the nation. And King David took that punishment willingly. So you see, God does not choose the qualified. God qualifies the chosen. In these days that we are in today, what is God doing? God is exposing evil in our world. And sadly, very sadly, if good people must be unalived for this exposure and for evil to be exposed, then who are we to judge God's methods of doing this? It's not just Charlie Kirk. It's that young lady that she got away from a war-torn country where her own government is using their citizens as meat for the meat grinder. They don't care. They're pocketing millions of dollars. They're rich. They have power. And they are destroying their own country for their own greed. That's been exposed. And now it's having a hard time. The problem we're having with this indoctrination and this pushing of victimhood and hatred for white people in America, it's fully exposed now. Sadly, it took a nice young lady of 22 years old to be unalived on a public transit train for people to wake up. And not even a week later, Charlie Kirk. It is so fully exposed. We can't deny God's authority. And we must understand that things happen for the glory of God. I have seen many people now since September 10th, last Wednesday, I have seen many people seeing just what we have been talking about for years, warning them of, exposing, and we've been ignored. But now people are going out, they're buying a Bible, they're picking up their Bible again, and they want to see the truth. They need to learn what is going on. Sadly, I will say, just like 9/11 in 2001, that Sunday after that horrific event, the churches were overflowing of people looking for truth. Within 2 weeks, the churches were almost empty. Because they went to a church to find the truth of what is going on in our society, and it wasn't there. And I hear that this past Sunday, yesterday, because I'm recording this on Monday, yesterday, churches were packed. But how long will they stay packed? When they see that they're looking for the truth of what is going on in our society, and why is this happening, and why have people lost their morals, their values, their principles of mankind, where people are being gunned down for nothing more than having their own opinion. And when they don't find that in our churches, they will leave. Because guaranteed, they go to those churches with those fancy little flags and that certain little class of people. You know what they're getting? That act last Wednesday is being glorified. Because they are in those churches, and the leadership of those churches are playing the victim from the oppressor. They are a victim, and they're scared for their lives, and they won't let us be. Because I'll tell you, I want to be clear. I do not agree with that lifestyle one bit. The only thing that irks me the most is it has to get out of our schools. It has to stop being forced onto the children. That is wrong. That is demonic beyond belief. You took God out of the schools so you could push that, what God sees as an abomination, onto the youth. Whatever they do, once they're out of school and they're young adults and they're out on their own in the world, whatever they choose to do, it's not up to me. It's not between me and them or my belief in them, because they're never going to change my belief in God. They're never going to change my love and trust in Jesus Christ. It's not going to happen. Because there will come a time and there will come a day when they will be held accountable for their own beliefs. Telling Jesus Christ on Judgment Day you don't believe in Him is not going to save you from the lake of fire. But when you choose the world, and the world justifies to you that this hatred and anger and violence and sinful ways in life of anything, of theft or lying and cheating and adultery and praising sports teams and everything more than you praise God, when you idolize these things more than you idolize God, then you will be held accountable for that. All I can do is I can tell you what the Bible says. I can teach you what the Bible says and the true meaning. Not because I'm looking for money or I'm looking for fame. I do all this for nothing. I've done this for years. Even my podcast, I done it for nothing. I never monetize. I never do anything. And yes, sure, this is going on YouTube, but I do put it on other platforms. YouTube shadow bans me like you wouldn't believe. They don't notify my subscribers that I put a new one up. They mess with the view counts. They do everything in their power to drive me away from their platform. But I will never leave the platform, because it's my right. If I can save just one soul by putting it on YouTube, even if YouTube gives me credit for it or not, I don't care. But if one person watches it and it saves them from the lake of fire, from a dismal life, from following Satan and not God, then I've done my job. I've done what God has asked of all of us to do. And this is where we have to understand, sometimes good people will go down for the glory of God. We know that Charlie Kirk is in a much better place than this earth. And there are good people out there, and they will take care of his wife and his children. And I pray to God every day that God does keep them well, because they deserve it. And it is a shame, yes. But if there is one truth the Bible teaches us, you don't get out of this life alive. None of us do. But it's what we do while we're here that means everything. So I hope you're all doing well. And a little bit of help, share this video. Mention me to your friends. Let's see if we can't grow the channel a little bit more. Let's see if we can't get past the shadow banning of YouTube. And let's keep this truth going, because it's the truth that is needed in a time of evil. So on that, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, God willing, this is No Way Out.